All right. Too much masturbation there.
We're live right now, sir.
Yeah, well, red hands, indicate a lot of things there too. And what it does not indicate is the fact that RDV is with me from the Great West, ladies and gentlemen. So tonight we're going to be covering Logan's Run from 1976, science fiction movie. I, of course, am your host, Rob, from the broadcasting live from the Extreme Studios just west of Orlando, Florida. And so we were just talking offline about, first kind of watch maybe for RDV. I'm not quite sure, but no. RDV, there's a lot of things here that I wanted to bring up as far as science fiction kind of stuff here with this movie. I know it's something you've been mentioning for a long time you want to watch. It, of course, was the winner of our poll that we'd put up. So actually the listeners voted on which science fiction movie we wanted. And there's definitely a lot of things to talk about here. And I will say this going into it, whether we agree on this or not, or the audience as they pile in the chat, there's two basic ideas about the movie Logan's Run. It's a great science fiction movie, and everything else after that, like Star Wars and all the space opera stuff, sucks ass. Or a lot of people go, no, it's just a rich, empty, nothing burger that just looks really, really, really good. And there's really a lot of truth to both, and I'm definitely going to dive into it. But I am definitely still kind of stunned by the 70s aesthetic. It brought back so much memory and feel. So it's definitely successful in some regards. But what's your initial take on this film, Logan's Run?
Well, this is not a first watch for me. I actually own the Blu-ray.
Oh, nice. That's a good-looking print, sir.
Yeah, I don't know where it is now. I had it with me the other day, but I put it away. But so I had to double check because I thought maybe I had the unedited copy. There is actually an unedited cut somewhere.
Yep.
And it's so the movie starts off a little differently from like as far as this goes. With I believe his name is Francis. And here is Francis 6 or whatever his name is, but played by Richard Jordan, who is a phenomenal actor.
He is. He's a good heavy in this.
Wow. So basically, in the beginning of this movie, Francis is the Sandman, and he basically chases a runner into the middle of the. They're like the way to describe Logan's Run. They're in a dome with a toy monorail. Looks like it's straight out of Mr. Rogers. The little trolley going through.
I'm gonna go off here in a minute, but keep going.
They live in a shopping mall.
It is a shopping mall.
It literally is a shopping mall.
Yep.
They converted a shopping mall to make it look futuristic stuff. So this runner is being chased in the beginning of the movie and in the director's cut, and he gets shot and he falls in the water, and then they cheer for it. There was a lot of stuff like that was taken out because of the fact they wanted a PG movie.
Yes.
Otherwise, because you couldn't kill people and all stuff because we rated R and stuff. So you see a lot of this where they can kill people. They don't until the very end, where which basically what happens to Francis. When we get to that, I'll just my comments on that. It was just kind of like, bro, you're not dead. It looked like it wasn't that hard of a blow.
Everybody's a bad shot in this film.
Though, here's the thing: Francis is not a bad shot. The person who's a bad shot is Michael York's character.
Yeah.
Even though he claims later, I've killed people runners before. You've never killed runners before. You're a bad shot.
But this is kind of segueing a little bit into some of the stuff we're talking about, because it'd be very easy to just go scene by scene or act by act. But here's the thing: in the mid 70s, I've mentioned before, particularly when you and I reviewed Planet of the Apes and some other science fiction things out there, that Soylent Green comes to mind immediately. There's this idea of limited resources on the planet, and so if you think of the planet as a closed system, the whole idea is that we got the population curve grows too much faster than the resource curve, so therefore you reach an inflection point, and then the world goes to shit. It's all crap. It's not really fundamental at all, and there's cycles of things too. It's a very dumbed down thing that had been made its way into, generally speaking, progressive and communist type societies to gain political control. I don't think that's really arguable. It's not. I mean, we have our versions of that exist today, right? But back then, the whole idea of, at least I want to see in America, if you take the whole climate change, global cooling, and all the stuff was what it was in the 70s, the idea is that, hey, in the 60s, we can't let some commie country beat us into space. So we're going to dump a lot of stuff here after World War II and become the best country in America, or best country in America. Listen to me talk. The best country in the world, America. And so you had this great push into the sciences with engineering, getting a man on the moon. And then by the 70s, the residual left over was more of the well, hey, if we lived in a futuristic utopian society, because we're really experiencing a great high until we got into the 70s and things got dystopian, what would that look like? Because you're absolutely right. They literally shot this in a shopping mall. A lot of places, I
Yeah.
think it was in Dallas, right? So there was this design of shopping malls going from the 60s into the 70s, particularly here in Central Florida and around the country, where they brought the environment in, because that was this idea that, oh, if you took a spaceship to a planet like or the moon or something, you wanted to colonize it and all that stuff, what would it look like? Well, you'd have to bring plants with you for um, photosynthesis, for stuff from the seed, so you could grow a lot of protein. And so you get the 70s vibe here, and this vibe, anybody that lived it knows this is what malls were like in the 70s, as well as the buildings and all that. They totally nailed it with the set pieces.
My mall didn't exist till 1971, so this is 76. So I'm not sure when this mall was built in Texas where they're shooting it, but they're fairly new.
Yes.
But of course, I mean, it's just an office. You're going to bring plants into it, but it has nothing to do with the movie, though.
Absolutely disagree totally, because the whole idea was
the movie
coexistence of nature with mankind in a utopian society, because where they're living is a closed system, and that design, I'll just go on record. I'll go on record for this. It's a ripoff of Epcot, which is the environmental protocol.
Well, I don't know anything about Epcot, so I'm just reviewing the movie, not Disney World.
You can't not talk about this movie without mentioning the fact that
I can, because I've never been to Epcop, so I don't
know.
Why
I'm giving it because you don't know. Yeah. So the whole thing. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, as far as this, a future. This is a dystopian movie. Basically, what would happen? Yeah, if the planet ran out of resources, it's one of those movies. So they all basically, we don't know when, but we know is that after some war or whatever, they decided to live inside this bubble. It's run by an automated computer system and they all have different gems, and they all different colors by the time their years they have left before by age 30, they go to this culling, what's called renewal. But in reality, they're just being like sucked up into this thing and then shot with lasers and then killed. So it's kind of like a lie. Pretty much, you said, because it's population control, because they don't have enough resources. And as you find out, as this guy, for whatever reason, I always thought that was such a weird plot armor concept. Oh, Logan, we need you to go undercover. The secret missions by the computer tells him to be a runner and find sanctuary and stuff. But I always wondered, like, was it really the computer that told him to do this? Because it's such a weird concept, because
well, that's the whole point that they don't dive into a lot with this movie that you mentioned, was
the odds of him coming back and fulfilling his mission, without just being shot because he's a runner and stuff. And just and then once he's outside, why would he want to come back? But what I liked about this movie is the fact he said, everybody in here is pretty much they're led to believe they're basically they're all raised with limited knowledge. What you would do in a society like this, in a bubble world. So you don't know anything else. You only know what you're told. So nobody questions things. People question things are the ones the runners, and they're the ones that are basically shunned as being criminals. And that's what you do in a society like this. So I did like some of the tech they use in here, but they have the little laser pistols. I'm thinking how many? But realistically, I'm a gun guy. How many charges do you get before they it's useless? Does it work in water and all that stuff? I'm really fascinated about this movie as far as when they get out of the world, the little bubble thing. Logan with Jenny Gutter character, they go out and they explore, and then she's kind of first they come across what seems like a ice cave, and we get this this weird robot thing, a cross between Bing Crosby and something C-3PO. And it was supposed to be a droid that's supposed to help people, but he says oh, we ran out of plankton, we ran out of fish, we ran out of this, so we needed protein. And we find out what happened to the 1,000 other people that are basically gone runners. They're not accounted for. Well, they've been frozen and then locked in these chambers, and so it's horrifying. But this movie really picks up for me is when they get into that, as they get out into the world, they get past that, and they start exploring with, I guess, the capital, downtown Washington, D.C., and just seeing how everything's overgrown. Because the year is they're in the 23rd century, so obviously everything's going to be taken back by nature. That's just the way it works. So I was kind of crazy when they run into Peter Ustinov's character. And a guy, he's the first person I've ever seen who's old. and all the cats and all this stuff, and it's just like I said, the acting is so in this, and but that's okay because I'm more into the fantasy science fiction part. Is like these are people who seeing things for the first time, so it's gonna look a little hokey. It's no different than reading a actually the way and I'll probably get flagged for this. I'd probably put this on the level of basically of quality of writing and stuff as far as Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, see, I would totally disagree with you there. I don't think it's even close because to your point, when they cut out stuff to make it like more like a PG or G rate, just kind of more family friendly and all that too. Yeah. There's a lot of areas that they could have explored that they didn't. And
well, it's Britain. They were not allowed back then to do certain things.
I understand that.
Yeah,
this doesn't change the fact that that was the case because I think the acting actually is not very good, other than you say like Michael York's character, he's supposed to, I think, be a bit naive, and his partner I thought stole the show. Richard Jordan, the actor, I thought was
because he's crazy.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing. Going back to the setup of what's going on, by the time you're 30, you're called out, to your point. So it's what we call a closed system. Going back to what I was describing before with Epcot, everybody would live in a utopian society, literally not have a job to do, could do whatever they want. So the people is when you don't realize it early on, he's like the man because he's a killer, and although he doesn't think of himself that way. And then they have like the old like Bumble Tinder kind of thing where he meets Jenny Agutter, and the guy that he kills has this old ancient symbol, an ankh on there that's Egyptian.
Yeah, when he meets
Jenny, she happens to have that around her neck. So there's some stuff there, and he doesn't quite see that till later on. And why would you? You're used to having orgies and partying, and it's a perfect society where everybody's just kind of dumbed down. It's the whole bread circus's routine. It kind of goes back to like Star Trek from the 60s, this really progressive notion of, well, we don't have to worry about energy. We don't have to worry about run money. We don't have to worry about food. We'll just synthesize it. It was more about dealing with ideas. The problem with here, and the reason why I disagree and say it's very light riding, is they just give you the setup. Hey, but when you're 30, that blinking crystal in your left hand? Left hand obviously is a religious thing, right? Because God would prefer you not to be sinister and left-handed. And also the way they die too, they were brought up to the light, if you notice that. I mean, those are obviously hardcore Christian influences. To me, they just sort of teased it. So it's almost like it's like a detective kind of chase thing until they escape, which look, let's be honest. I really wanted to ask you this because obviously there's no real CGI in here. It's all like matte paintings and models that are zoomed in, like you mentioned, the monorail and all that stuff. Again, a clear-cut combination of Epcot and what would come to be.
It's all models like Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think this came out just before Star Wars. Star Wars is 77? So this was 76. I think it was 77 and 80 and then 83. But the thing with all the moving and colonizing was a hot idea, the future in space in the 70s, because we were getting ready with Moonraker and Star Wars and all that to have the space race program to colonize, allegedly. And so you had a lot of these futuristic kinds of things. So that, like I said, they put them in shopping malls, they put them in offices. I thought it was interesting when they left because you saw all the major things of the capital being taken over, like you said. But then that's when it does feel like Planet of the Apes. They meet a person that's lived. He's an older dude, Peter Ustinov. I don't know. It's the acting. Wow. It's not very good, though. Is it?
I don't know. You're starting to sound like Pixel. The acting's not great. I'm like, honestly, I enjoyed the movie, so maybe I just overlooked the acting. It didn't pull me out at all. Even when he goes to get a new face at the doctor's place. And the doctor, I thought the doctor was brilliant, too, and he goes to try to murder him, and they have a fight, and the doctor gets killed. It's like I said. Honestly, I thought the acting was well, even with Billy. Billy's the cub, or basically a leader of these gangs that live out in the outskirts where it's quarantined off because it's too violent. There's people who don't want to live in society. They're the young punks.
But not this idea of what was called sanctuary that Jenny Agutter's character knew, and so that was the secret thing. So, because you hit the nail on the head. It really almost doesn't make sense. Why would this AI, which is how I thought of it, female voice, tell you, hey, I need you to go out there, and oh, by the way, you're like 25, 26, I'm going to advance you a couple years, and when you come back, I'll reset it or whatever, basically turn him into a runner to go find it, do it. Why would he come back? It makes absolutely no sense at all.
The only thing I can think of, they don't really show, so maybe there has to be people who have to have their own jobs. it's not just hedonistic. There's people who have their own jobs. The Sandman have their job. So there's got to be some kind of like class representation, you know.
But did you see that? No exchange of money, no goods, nothing. It was just people having orgies and fooling around and walking around and hanging out and stuff. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, it's that Peter Pan
syndrome. It's a weak storyline. I guarantee that it's not fleshed out. Looking at this movie though, and looking at what came around, Battlestar Galactica came out about 2 years later. I'm trying to remember when V came out.
V was 83, 84.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously those you can talk about those shows are kind of probably influenced by stuff like this. Planet of the Apes, like I said, when they go to beneath the Planet of the Apes and he starts, you know, exploring that's what I mean when I'm comparing it to Planet of the Apes. The science fiction.
I think they were going for that, right? Like when they leave and they're walking and they don't like the lizard that almost touches her or she freaks out and they're walking on the beach. That beach scene's just a complete ripoff of the Planet of the Apes, in my opinion.
Yeah. And
I don't have a problem with it, but I mean, it's quite obvious that's what it is.
No, but I mean, like, them experience everything, like coal and stuff. Now, there were some goofs. And I was like, man, quick change scenes. And as far as when they get like, oh, we need to take our clothes off and we'll put these
the
furs. The furs. And he takes his shirt off and she goes full nude and everything. You see everything. You know, everything except for the bush. And then you see him, he puts this thing on, takes his shirt off, and then he still has his pants on. He sits down. Where'd his pants go? They're gone.
Right.
But then then he's like, so then after like they realize, oh, we should get out of here. Like we should grab our clothes and then put it back on. Instantly, his clothes are back on. So are hers. It's like underneath the thing. I was like, how the heck? And like, remember he said, we'll take them off because we're freeze to death. You know, and I'm wondering, is like, remember how would he know that? Because I don't think they experience anything cold. That was their first experience. So it was just kind of like there's some goofs in some of the writing and the acting and stuff.
Right.
But because it was edited, because they wanted to go for a PG run, because they if they had done a lot of stuff they wanted to do, it would have been a rated R, and they didn't want to do that. Which I would think was dumb. Go for the rated R, you know, and you'd still get the people coming in to watch this, you know.
I mean, by the time you still had, you know, more adult level type things like I think with Soylent Green, there's a similar scene where they find some strawberries, right, and they're eating it and they don't know exactly what it, you know, I mean, and they're like, oh my God, the acting just there with Heston and all that going over that was kind of cool. So I mean, it's here that they had a lot of areas that they could have went in a lot of directions and they chose not to. They just kept it fairly thin, which is fine. Where I think this movie really succeeds is, and I want to hear your take on it, is I spent a lot of time talking about the 70s aesthetic and everything else, which now if you're watching a movie, if you didn't live during that time period or whatever, it'd be like, man, this looks kind of weird and all that. Did it bother you that they had these models that they filmed like it was a city and all that? I personally liked it. It's very cheesy, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah, so I personally chuckled every time I see it. I'm like, is this Fraggle Rock, little dozers? You know, like when they go in there, it's like, let's go in here, and then it's like, it reminds you of the really bad like movies when you see like what was it, Mystery Science Theater 3000. You see the spaceship on a string going across, you know. It's so cheesy, but honestly though, I'm glad it wasn't CG. Like they got the set designs, you know, I was really good on this.
It's just incredible looking.
Yeah. When they actually show them getting into the actual the unit stuff, and then later on when they're actually into like Washington D.C., you know, and you know they're walking up the Abraham Lincoln, and you're like, and I love like McGregor's like, say, huh, like what? I've never seen a face like that. It gets so old.
It was Lincoln because they were.
You know what was missing? I was like, maybe the people. He should have said like, I didn't realize there were giant people back then. That would have been great. Like everyone's that size.
Well, Planet of the Apes kind of went into several things in there. They went away from the whole reverse evolution and time travel aspect that was the tool for them to do it, to where they're like worshiping like an atomic bomb and some subculture stuff. And you go, well, for the canon and that story, you could see where that happened. And here it's like, they just show some of us, but that's really more for the audience than for them and their ignorance.
See, the difference between this is that Michael York's character has no previous knowledge, where Charlton Heston's character,
Yes.
Bright Eyes, actually remembers things, because
Yes.
it was only like about a month ago for him. He was in space, and like everything's
I think that's a really valid point, because
yeah.
here he's supposed to be naive, and he's supposed
Yeah.
to. He represents the idealistic young mind that's going into adult world, where you realize things aren't always exactly what they seem, and then when you get a taste of the truth and you're assertive enough on it, then what? Because the whole idea here is that once they leave, we see them, because she won't have sex with them at all. He's like,
No.
I don't get it. But when they leave and all that, they go swimming in the water, and she's like, this time the answer is yes. And then, so they don't show them making sweet, sweet love, but the crystal that's their death clock on there is now gone. So he gets this idea after talking to the old guy and spending some time with him. Hey, let's go back and tell everybody.
Yeah.
That would be a great idea.
Well, I mean,
in this case, it turns out to have a happy ending, though.
He kind of felt like there's no reason for people to die. Hey, I it's like Charles Nesson, Soylent Green is people. He felt the need. He had to tell people because they felt kind of like we should share this knowledge, because and my own problem is like this movie is like, okay, now you're all out because if it goes back, he gets captured. The computer interrogates him. Did you find sanctuary and blah blah? And then he overloads the computer system because he can't handle his manliness now, and he overloads and he takes distraction, shoots some guys, and then. He just shoots the computer, runs with Jenny, go out the building, and the building exploding. Everybody flees outside, and there they see the old man there, and they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And they're all treating him like he's the Pope. They don't want to touch him. And yeah, it's like, and it kind of ends with that, him smiling, and stuff because at the steps with her Jenny. It's like because they freed the people. The problem is now you just condemned everyone to death because. We don't know if there's any food sources out here. That's why everybody went to the bubble. Obviously there's oxygen. And,
you're in a closed system. You've got a steady supply of food. And they even mentioned that, hey, when you hit 30, one person is born, one person dies kind of thing, right? So it's supposed to be a zero-sum game, which really doesn't necessarily exist. But you're right. If they've been there for a couple hundred years, let's say, whatever the situation is, I don't know if they exactly explicitly say, but it's almost a 2300 time frame, then their immune system would be completely compromised with what's out there if they haven't been exposed. So you're 100% right. This is like the world all over again, where probably 80% would just perish.
And say if it wasn't from a nuclear fallout, or like that, or we don't know because they didn't really say if there's a war or whatever. Reason they said that they're in the society, went into this little bubble thing.
Yep.
Take away the immune system. We know there's cats, so somehow the cats are always freaking surviving in this.
Orange cat energy.
Yeah, there was there's Cal Claw cats, But as far as like, we didn't see any other animals when they were traveling. We saw the little lizard, but we didn't see any. This is Texas. I guess was they filming it.
They wouldn't know how to survive.
Yeah. Is there any fish? Yeah. They don't have all this customs now. Now the books. Do they know how to read? That's the other question. Do they even know how to read stuff?
It's and again, this isn't because look. This at least has a generic idea about, hey, you're hitting 30, you're going to die, whatever. So what's the concept here? A lot of this, I think, is more of a social, political, science fiction sort of thing rather than technical. And at least presents it. It doesn't do a very good job of going deep. So I understand early on when I mentioned there's a lot of love and hate for this because obviously a lot of effort was put into this. The people are very good looking. I mean, if you want to look at what people look like in the 70s with the colors and all that, this is not that far removed from, like I say, shopping centers and the ideas of it and everything. But at the same time, too, it would have been nice to understand, okay, I get that the AI seems to be running the whole place, but usually there's a maintenance system or an intelligence behind it of people that go, okay, we're going to let this go. We'll make decisions. There's always somebody on top, the man behind the, curtain, as it were. And we don't get a sense of that, right?
Yeah. And now, since we're talking about the show, and I saw that and I was like there's a show. If the show takes place after this, I'd be more intrigued. But it sounds like when I read the show is pretty much like the longer version of the movie. They fleshed out, just kept going to stages, and maybe it makes more sense to the show than it is for the movie, guys, because the movie kind of like wraps it up,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, I would love to see that, like, there's a computer obsessed, and the whole thing of Francis, man, like. he just loved murdering people. He just loved shooting runners and stuff. He was crazy. And I would love to see him, like be more fleshed out than just that, is like, because I'm like, other people are like, because I remember there's nobody has a sense of moral, I guess, right? There's no, they don't know what's right
again,
and wrong.
going back to what I was saying with the morals, you're talking about some basic level of intelligence or education. It would have been interesting early on if we would have had a sense of what that would be like, because we don't get it. There's a chase scene when they start to run where they go through basically a sex club. It's really dumbed down. It's just kind of a trippy scene.
Well, they actually darkened it up because in the actual uncut that actually is brightened up so you can see more of the girls that are naked in there.
Okay.
But
I mean, it's. I mean, there's worse than 80s movies.
It's just basically, if you are an acid, you're gonna have a bad trip watching this movie, especially going to but I mean, it's like they have. I don't know. I wouldn't say morals, but they have some like with established what was right.
If you grew up your whole life, you had no job, you had no money, and all you did was fool around and eat and like go to concerts. What usually happens is the society breaks down a lot quicker, and a lot of times this whole positive outlook on the future with no need of resources is that everybody will be happy and everything else here too, and that's kind of how they presented it.
And it was breaking down. It was kind of was in that society. I mean, how many years it's going to, but it was breaking down because you had runners, you had people obviously don't agree. They had the underground network that did not agree with the system. They didn't believe that people ascend. They believed they're going to be murdered. So there already was like resistance going on, until he killed them by basically going. Here's another thing too. It's like he knows he can track runners, right?
Mm-hmm.
Using the device.
Yep.
So you're gonna flee. Like now, this is him. Like, he literally is on the run. He doesn't want to die. So he's not like he's undercover like he's supposed to be and infiltrate. Wouldn't you cut that little diamond thing out?
I don't think you can. I think it was the whole point.
Yeah.
Or if so, you wouldn't know how to. They probably don't know that there's a kill switch, or you see that's kind of the.
But no, you don't. But you know that little device in your little gem in your hand, or is actually like traceable because you have the device that traces it.
No, you're right. And
so
they get traced by
yeah. So I just wrapped the mentality on that. I was like, it's being traced, and it's like, oh man. But
when the young kids find them and all that, and his partner is chasing them and all that, and they have a little bit of an exchange war like that, and then they run away. He could have just shot him, and he doesn't. So I'm going, God, at least have him escape or something.
And
at times he's really dumb and can't think at all.
Yeah, Lara Lindsay is actually the woman runner that actually gets shot by Francis. She's known for Sweet Ride, Boston Strangler, and Logan's Run. It's her big thing. But she was in the TV series. She was Computer Place. If I'm credited.
Oh, okay. Now here's the thing. This reminded me of something I reviewed the season 1 of a couple of years ago here on the Extreme Movies on Extreme TV, and that would be called Silo, which, if you think about it, has a lot of similar themes.
Yeah.
It's got Rebecca Ferguson. She's like a maintenance worker, and there's levels of the silo. So I talked about the class structure, how it's visible up, people that are really important are up in the high part of the silo. And it's like a nuclear silo underground that people live in. But her and somebody that she knows, the guy had fallen away out, and there's like a murder. So there's a detective thing to it. I have not watched the second season. I keep thinking I'd like to go back to it, but it just hasn't compelled me to. That's one of the problems with this movie. It's very good looking to look at. You don't hate anybody, but at the end of the day, when you step back at it, all the things we're talking about, as much as it sounds like we enjoy it and it's pleasant to watch, I think that's a great way of describing it. It's not very deep. So some people looked at it and said, how, this is just like a lot of stuff like Star Wars, where there's the bare threads of a story on here and they don't really investigate anything deep, because Star Wars is not, it's not science fiction at all. Here, at least you could say there's a concept, maybe they don't explore it, but it's there. And so when we've talked about science fiction before, I've kind of went the more technical aspect, because that was the whole purpose behind a lot of it. Now people just say, oh, let's just have some idea and not really explain what the hell's going on with it and try to do it. So it's like that in Silo, except for Silo, they disguise it as a detective show. They don't go into the science part to it, right? It really is more of a whodunit, what's going on. Or like the show that everybody's got a heart on right now, Severance, which really isn't It's kind of a goofy ass show. I wouldn't call it a very serious show, although there's an idea there. But it's the thing about Logan's Run is everybody goes back to it because it's fun, and you remember it from the 70s. And Michael York's doesn't, I think, offend anybody, and we remember from Austin Powers, right, and some other stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it's one of the few things out of the 70s that you go, yeah, Logan's Run. And then you kind of almost use it as a cornerstone to compare the stuff that's come after it, because it's a good representation of the 70s and what it thinks about it. And that way, it's really a piece of its own time in a way. And that's not a bad thing.
No. I'm looking up some of the actors there. We had Michael Anderson, who'd been on Hawaii Five-0 for 4 episodes. And he then was Fantasy Island for 2 episodes. Night Kill, Chips, Magnum PI. Yeah, did a lot of Highway to Heaven, did a lot of TV show acting.
So talk to me about Farrah Fawcett.
Farrah Fawcett, I thought she was here. I thought she did well in this movie. I've never watched Charlie's Angels, so I don't know. I can't speak about her acting, but in here, she played her character perfectly. She played the pretty dumb blonde. That was kind of flirting with Michael York's character in this. She was assistant to the doctor. Mm-hmm. She's kind of vapid, but other than that, like I said, like she has somewhat of a role in here, where after the doctor tries to kill him, and Logan runs away, and then they come across the underground resistance. So after going through a secret passageway in the orgy place, the sex club, she shows up and she helps. We'll talk into Jenny Agutter's character Jessica, confirm like, oh yeah, he is a runner, and that they can trust him. And as soon as they're like, oh yeah, we could, as soon as they agree, like, oh, we can trust them, then the cops, and I know, right? Wow. Everyone's getting killed. He's in they're fleeing. She originally gets knocked out, and then she gets shot.
Farrah Fawcett had one of the most popular posters of all time that you would hang up.
Yes. If you didn't have that,
old as Farrah Fawcett Majors, because she just married the bionic
man, she was
Majors, because he was married in the 70s. Yep. So that's obviously they want to monetize that part of it.
She died young too.
Yeah.
Did you so Roscoe Lee Browne plays Box?
Yeah, he's the voice of the robot. That guy was really around in the 70s a lot.
Yes, but I know him most for is in the 90s cartoon Spider-Man. He was the voice of Kingpin.
Really?
Yes. For 34 episodes. I was like, I know I've heard that voice before. I'm like, oh my gosh, it actually is that guy. So he's been around for a while. He died in 2007. I remember him from Oliver and Company and Treasure Planet. Mm-hmm. He's also in The Cowboys in 1972. The last thing he did was The Telemarketers, which was he was a narrator for that, which came out in 2009. But epic movie, he was in there too. But Garfield Two Tails, Static Shock, mm-hmm. We're really into voice acting. So, but honestly though, it's a decent movie. But it had just like every movie they have questions because of that. It's like you're not really supposed to ask, but you kind of start doing especially movies like this because they don't really think everything out. They have an idea what they want to do, and that's kind of what it was, But it's a fun dystopian movie. I said I love just like Planet of the Apes when they discover what happened to America, and that's kind of the mystery for me. I want to know what exactly went on. I know that they were running out of resources. They went through some kind of population control. Is this the only Logan's or is the only city though? The only hub? Is there more? No.
There's intelligence behind all that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'd be like. I haven't really looked much into the TV series, but that would be awesome if like Logan now has to go infiltrate other cities and biodomes and help for free people. He's now
at the risk of sounding like we're arguing a lot to everybody on there because we just talk about things we like. But is this really dystopian if it has a happy ending?
Well, it's not a utopia. It was dystopian future, setting a sister future, but at the end of the movie,
it's not a bleak ending.
It's kind of like they're going in the correct path. It's kind of like Divergent and stuff like that.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's going to be a happy ending. It's just for the moment they have peace.
I would argue
it's kind of like the Matrix, red pill, blue pill.
Right, but there's a choice, right? And it exists, at least you're aware that you can make one. And I think the thing about this movie that no matter how you look at it, whether you look at it in a sort of religious context or science fiction or whatever, is that you have this element of free will in here, whether you don't want to live with them because you're too violent, so you're put in this other area, or you want to run because you just something how genetically, because they make a comment in here about, Jenny does, about, well, hey, I wish I would have known my mom, and the guy's like, why? So it seems like you're just going to have somebody born, no matter how perfect you try and control a situation, that's going to rebel, and it's pretty obvious. So they don't mention birth control or anything like that at all.
And that's the thing. I can see with Jenny. I don't know why I should ask questions, because it's a thing. It's in your DNA, your code of the paternal. Women want to be mothers. They want, the experience of that.
Exactly.
So you can suppress all you want that with all your different cult-like beliefs, give us Kool-Aid or whatever, but like human nature always will see a creep out, and then you can't control it. It's just that's the way it is. I mean, honestly, like I said, I thought it was a really well done movie, and I honestly I hope eventually one of these days we do review the actual TV series. Right. I did find it. I told you I found it on the Internet Archive.
Mm-hmm.
All the episodes. It's like, I think it's like 14 episodes. It didn't last so long.
And this movie's popular enough where I think you currently here in the United States, from what I could tell here in Florida, looking around, you still have to pay for it. It's not like on Tubi or anything.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It definitely has some staying power because it's such a clean type of production, and it's so lighthearted. It's not, like I say, a deep film. It reminds me of how after Star Wars came out and Jaws had already come out at this point, that you wanted to have these big blockbusters that were safe. Yeah. And so when you had a movie like Moonraker came out, made a shit ton of money in James Bond, but a lot of James Bond purists are like, this is fucking garbage, and it's a guilty pleasure for me. But then that's why they went back to For Your Eyes Only, tried to get a little bit more grounded, because it said, hey, this is just too lighthearted. And science fiction, you and I did Outland with Sean Connery, and that's really just something set in space, and that's kind of badass. A little more of a serious tone than this. There's nothing wrong with it. You can have something lighthearted in space, and this movie definitely fits it. It's kind of cool and trippy in a way. I do enjoy it. It's not a hate thing or anything. It's just, wow. Could you make a movie like that today?
You talk about that. Well, today or this year, end of the year, where they were talking about rebooting the Running Man based more off the book. Yeah. So a lot, and Mortal Kombat 2 comes out this year, and there's so many movies that are coming out. And like, didn't we already do these? There's another. Did you know that there's also I Still Know What You Did Last Summer movie coming out?
I did not know that.
I was looking, I was like, wow, what year is this? So honestly, I thought this was a real done movie. I was going through my DVDs I haven't watched yet. Maybe we'll do some of these for a poll. I got Legals Landed. Check another Michael Caine movie. Donald Sutherland, Robert Duvall.
Okay.
And I was also looking at this too. Papillion. So maybe we'll
wait a minute. Is that a twofer there? That's Papillon. That's the Steve McQueen. Oh, and then the other one with what's his face. Actually, no, there's a couple versions of Papillon. That looks like a different one.
Yeah. The Greatest Adventure of Escape, Papillon. Yeah. Well, this has the book. Comes with it. So the inside steel case.
Nice. Yeah. Papillon's a very philosophical film to me. It's very hardcore that way, much more than this movie or others.
Yeah, I got these actually. I bought these all together along with Logan's Run back in like early 2000s at Best Buy. But Best Buy used to carry movies and CDs and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. I came across Logan's Run. I had no idea what the hell it was. I bought it and I watched, and I was just like, wow, this is trippy. Then my dad's like, yeah, there's a TV series. I'm like, what? Yeah. It's like, because usually when you pick up a random movie, you don't expect it to be a TV series also. So it must have been really popular that they decided to do a TV series, and they went for about, like I said, like probably had to be like 2 seasons. So maybe it was about like 14, 16, whatever episodes. But,
the only difference with Papillon and The Human Condition is that it's very dark and very brutal. Whereas this movie has a chance to take something to talk about the human condition. They just present a few things to it. I agree with you. It's a fun film. I think it's definitely worth watching. It's obviously very popular that everybody here that in chat and some of the others voted for it. So that's why we reviewed it. Can't go wrong with this film. It's definitely one of the things you do have to watch from the 70s, in my opinion.
I think next Tuesday though, because we do have the final episode of Reacher this Sunday.
Correct.
And then Tuesday we should probably do The Road. I've never seen that before.
I don't feel like it because it's super dark, bro. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, I'll just say this. I did not like Great Escape. So long as it's better than that movie.
Interesting. All right, we can do it, bro. The road next week.
I love. Hey, it's a guy protecting his son, or is it really a son? He just found a kid. We don't know. I haven't watched it. 2009 could be too bad. I mean, I've watched movies like Archangel.
This is dark, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. Just telling you.
Dark, like they're not murdering children, are they? No, but
no comment.
No comment. This is children have now become food. We're bargaining chips. Oh, the Great Escape again.
Check it out, guys. I'm sure most of you guys are aware of it. If those are watching it, it's definitely worth watching.
I will put I will put a poll up more. We'll do some more science fiction because I'm thinking Andromeda Strain would be fun to watch. And I've never watched. She's got Stag Leg 17. Marnie's been talking about that for about a year now.
Yep.
That'd be kind of cool to check out. And then maybe, like I said, another. We haven't done Planet of the Apes. I don't think we have we?
I believe we have. It's been a while though.
All of them?
Not all of them.
No. Because everybody knows like the first one, but like we get to Beneath and then the City of Planet of the Apes and all stuff.
All that, yeah.
I know they get. It's been a while. It's been years since I've watched them. I watched in the '90s, bro. So like leaving this, I couldn't like, oh, I remember Logan's Run. I'm like, wait, I don't remember this. I don't remember that. I'm like, wow, there was nudity in this back this. I don't remember that. Yeah. It was like, yeah. Yeah, I know you guys like Great Escape. I said the reason I don't like Great Escape is because it's depressing. Because people they go to escape and then they just get shot. It's like I was just like, dang, is this like? I'm like, obviously it was the worst escape. But
anything else you need to plug?
No. Just we'll see you guys at 7 p.m. Eastern on this Sunday for the season finale of Reacher season 3. Yeah.
Looking forward to it. That's a fun show. Check that out, guys. And then we'll in a week or so after Reacher transition to something else. So we're looking forward to that here. I want to say thanks to everybody checking out the new TV show that we're dropping on Fridays. Sherlock Holmes. We're going to be up to episode 3 this week. It's been a lot of fun. It's been pretty successful. So it's what I would consider some of the better TV that's come out in a very long time. It's from the 80s, but just level writing considered to be some of the truest adaptation of Sherlock Holmes. Everybody's got their favorite nuances and stuff, but to me blows away anything that's been produced in the past 10, 20 years when it comes to Sherlock Holmes. But watch it. You tell us what you think, and we're going to be continuing with season 1 with that here as well. For RDV and everybody involved here at the Extreme Movie Show, good night now.
Good night, guys. And as always, please. I just want to go on one last thing.
Hit that button. Boom.
Boom.